The roof had been leaking for 3 days before Anara Jorvik finally admitted she needed help. And the man who showed up in July heat with a ladder and a canvas bag of tools had the kind of quiet competence that made her throat tight with something she refused to name. His name was Fletcher Poole, according to the note the village carpenter had sent with him, and he arrived at dawn when the air still held a whisper of coolness. Anara watched from her kitchen window as he surveyed the damage, running his fingers along the warped shingles where the summer storm had torn through. He was lean, maybe 30, with dark hair that curled at his collar and sun-browned skin that spoke of years working outdoors. When he knocked, she opened the door and found herself looking at gray eyes that held neither disgust nor fear. "Morning," he said. "Carpenter sent me, said you have a roof problem." "I do." She stepped aside, acutely aware of her own height, her green skin, the small tusks that curved up from her lower jaw. Most humans flinched. He just nodded and set his bag down. "Mind if I take a look from inside first? Want to see how bad the damage goes." She led him upstairs to the narrow hall where water had pooled across the floorboards, staining them dark. He knelt, pressed his palm flat, then looked up at the ceiling. A muscle worked in his jaw. "You have animals?" he asked. "Chickens? Goats? Why?" "Because this needs fixing today before another rain comes through, and I am going to be on that roof for most of it. Just want to make sure nobody is going to panic if they hear me walking around up there." "They will be fine." He nodded again and stood. "I will get started then." By the time the sun cleared the eastern tree line, he was on the roof, and by the time it began to bake the valley in earnest, he had stripped off his shirt. Anara told herself she had work to do. The goats needed milking. The chickens needed feeding. The garden needed weeding. But somehow she found herself in the yard with a basket of tomatoes, picking the ripe ones while her gaze drifted upward to where Fletcher moved across the pitched slope with easy balance. Sweat gleamed on his shoulders. His hands worked quickly, prying up damaged shingles, fitting new ones into place, hammering them down with precise strikes. He did not look at her, but she thought he knew she was watching. By midday, she brought him water. He climbed down, accepted the cup, and drank it in 4 long swallows. "Thank you," he said. "It is hot. It is July." He handed the cup back, and their fingers brushed. His hands were calloused, scarred along the knuckles. "Should be done by evening. The damage was not as deep as I thought." "That is good." He tilted his head, studying her with an expression she could not quite read. Then he smiled, just a little, and climbed back up. She went inside and tried to focus on kneading bread dough, but her thoughts kept circling back to the steady rhythm of his hammer, the glimpse of his shoulders through the window, the way he had looked at her like she was just another person who needed a roof fixed. When evening came, he packed his tools and knocked on her door. She opened it, and he stood there with his shirt back on, hair damp from the well water he must have used to wash. "It is done," he said. "Should hold you through winter and beyond. What do I owe you?" He named a price that seemed fair. She paid him from the money she kept in a jar on the mantel, counting out the coins carefully. He pocketed them and turned to go. "Thank you," she said. He paused at the threshold. "If you need anything else fixed, send word. I am staying at the inn through summer." Then he was gone, walking down the rutted path toward the village, and Anara closed the door and leaned against it and told herself firmly that she was being ridiculous. She made it 3 days. On the 4th day, she examined the fence by the goat pen and discovered that one of the posts was loose. It had probably been loose for months, possibly years, but suddenly it seemed urgent. She walked to the village and left a message at the inn. Fletcher arrived the next morning. "Fence post." He said, "It wobbles." He went to look at it, crouched down, gripped it with both hands, and gave it an experimental shake. It moved slightly. "I can fix that," he said. It took him an hour. She brought him water halfway through, and tried not to stare at the way his forearms flexed as he tamped earth around the new post. He accepted the water with that same quiet nod, and when he was done, he washed his hands at the pump and told her the price. "Seems like you keep good care of this place," he said as she counted coins. "I try. How long have you been here?" 5 years. "My husband bought it before he died. I have been managing since." Something shifted in his expression. Sympathy, maybe, or understanding. "That is not easy." "No." She handed him the money. "But it is mine." He pocketed the coins and gave her that small smile again. "If you need anything else, I will send word." A week later, the gate latch broke. Or rather, Anara discovered it had been sticking for months and decided it was finally intolerable. Fletcher came and replaced it with a new one he fashioned from scrap iron. He worked in the shade of the barn, and she brought him bread and cheese at midday. "You do not have to feed me," he said, but he ate it anyway. "You are working through lunch. Habit." He brushed crumbs from his hands. "Used to do piecework on the big estates north of here. You learn to eat fast and keep moving." "Why did you stop?" His face closed just a little. "Wanted a change." She did not push. Everyone had things they did not want to talk about. She knew that better than most. By the end of July, she had found 7 things that needed fixing. A shutter hinge, a wobbly table leg, a door that stuck in its frame, a loose board on the porch, a crack in the stone foundation that probably did not need immediate attention but that she suddenly could not stop thinking about. Fletcher fixed them all, and if he noticed the pattern, he did not say anything. He just showed up when she sent word, did the work, accepted her payment, and left. But he started to linger. It was small at first. A few extra minutes talking after the job was done. A question about her goats, her garden, how the farm was doing. She answered and found herself asking questions in return. Where he had learned his trade, whether he liked the village, what he thought of the summer heat. He had grown up 2 valleys over, he told her, apprenticed to a builder at 14. The village was fine, quiet, which he liked. The heat did not bother him much anymore. "You get used to it," he said, leaning against the porch rail after replacing the loose board. "Though I would not mind a cool evening now and then." "It will come," she said. "August brings thunderstorms. Looking forward to it." He pushed off the rail, shouldered his tool bag. "I will see you soon, I expect." "Probably," he grinned, and her heart did something complicated in her chest. The 8th thing she found broken was the handle on the well bucket. It was a legitimate problem, one that had been annoying her for weeks, but when Fletcher came to fix it, he looked at the well itself for a long moment before turning his attention to the bucket. "How deep is this?" he asked. 20 feet, maybe. My husband dug it the first year." Fletcher lowered the bucket, let it fill, hauled it back up. The water was clear, cold. He dipped a finger in, tasted it, then frowned. "It is good water," Anara said, defensive. "It is." He lowered the bucket again, leaning over the stone rim to peer down. "But the walls are old. You see how the stone is crumbling in places." She looked. In the dim light below, she could just make out the rough patches where mortar had worn away. "Is that a problem?" "Could be. If enough of it goes, the well could collapse. Or foul." He straightened, met her eyes. "You might want to think about having it reinforced before winter." Her stomach sank. Reinforcing a well was expensive, real work that would take days and cost more than she had tucked away in her jar. "I see." "I could do it," he said quietly. "But I would need to bring in stone mortar. It would not be cheap." "How much?" He named a figure that made her chest tighten. She had the money barely, but it would take most of her savings, and winter was coming. She would need that money for feed, for supplies, for the 100 small disasters that always seemed to crop up when the snow came. "Let me think about it," she said. "Take your time. It will hold for a while yet." He fixed the bucket handle, tested it, and handed her the rope. "But not forever." After he left, she sat on the porch and looked at the well and felt the weight of it settle over her shoulders. She had been doing so well. The farm was thriving. The animals were healthy. She had been starting to think she might actually make it, might actually build a life here. Now this. The ninth thing she found broken was a crack in the chicken coop wall. Fletcher patched it with wood and tar. The 10th was a warped door on the root cellar. He planed it down until it swung smoothly. The 11th was a wobbly shelf in the barn. He reinforced it with iron brackets. It was the first week of August, and the air had turned thick with the promise of storms. She brought him water after he finished the shelf, and they sat together on the barn steps, watching the clouds build on the horizon. "You know what you are going to do about the well?" he asked. "Not yet." He nodded, rolling the cup between his palms. "It is a hard decision. Everything here is." She glanced at him. "You must think I am foolish. A woman alone trying to run a farm. I think you are brave." The simplicity of it startled her. She looked away, throat tight. "I am not. I am just stubborn." "Those are not mutually exclusive." He set the cup down. "For what it is worth, I think you are doing a fine job. This place is well kept. Your animals are healthy. Your land is good. Not everyone could do what you have done. Not everyone has to. No." He was quiet for a moment. "But you chose to. That counts for something." The first drops of rain began to fall, fat and heavy. They smelled like dust and ozone. Fletcher stood, offered her his hand. She took it, let him pull her to her feet. His palm was warm, rough with calluses. He held on a moment longer than necessary. "I should go," he said. "Before the storm really hits. Be careful, always am." He walked into the rain, and she watched until he disappeared around the bend in the road. The 12th thing she found broken was a crack in the stone step leading up to her door. It was hairline thin, barely noticeable, but she told herself it could become a problem in winter when ice got into it and expanded. Fletcher came and filled it with mortar, smoothing it carefully with his trowel. "You are running out of things to break," he said, and there was amusement in his voice. "Am I? I have been here 11 times in 5 weeks, Anara. Either you are the unluckiest homesteader in the valley or something else is going on." Heat crept up her neck. She had been so careful, so subtle, or so she thought. "I do not know what you mean." He sat back on his heels, looked up at her with those gray eyes that saw too much. "I think you do." "Are you complaining about the work?" "Not even a little." He stood, brushing dust from his knees. "But I think we should talk honestly." Her heart hammered. "About what?" "About why you keep finding things for me to fix, and why I keep hoping you will." The air between them felt charged, electric. She could deny it, could retreat into the safety of pretense, but she was so tired of being alone, of pretending she did not notice the way he looked at her, the way he lingered, the way his smiles had grown warmer and his questions more personal. "I like having you here," she said quietly. "It is nice to have someone to talk to. Just talk." "I do not know, maybe." She met his eyes. "What do you want, honestly?" He stepped closer. "I want to stop pretending these repairs are the only reason I keep coming back. I want to sit on your porch and drink water and talk to you without a broken fence post as an excuse. I want to know if you feel the same way I do or if I am making a fool of myself." "You are not making a fool of yourself." "Then what are we doing, Anara?" She took a breath. "I think we are trying to figure out if this is allowed." "If what is allowed?" "This, us. A human man and an orc woman. People talk. They judge. I have been the subject of enough whispers to last a lifetime. I do not want to make your life harder." His expression softened. "Let them talk. I stopped caring what people thought about me a long time ago." "Why?" He looked away, jaw tight. For a moment she thought he would not answer. Then he said, "Because 3 years ago I made a mistake. I was working on an estate house, big place, lots of timbers and beams. I certified a support as sound when it was not. It gave way a week later. A man died. He had a wife, 2 kids. It was my fault. The pain in his voice was raw, old but unhealed. Anara reached out, touched his arm. I am sorry. I left after that. Could not stay, could not face them. I have been moving around ever since, taking small jobs, telling myself I am being careful. But the truth is I am afraid. Afraid to trust my own judgment. Afraid that if I build something that matters, it will fail again. You have fixed a dozen things here, she said. All of them are holding. Small things. A fence post, a gate latch, not something that could kill someone if I am wrong. What about the well? He looked at her sharply. You said it needs reinforcing, she continued. That is not a small job, that is something that matters. If you do it wrong, I could lose the farm. But I trust you to do it right. You should not. Why not? Because you made a mistake 3 years ago. Everyone makes mistakes, Fletcher. You think I have not. I married a man who bought a farm he did not know how to run and died before we could figure it out together. I have made 100 bad decisions since then, but I am still here. So are you. That is different. It is not. She tightened her grip on his arm. You are a good craftsman. I have seen your work. Everything you have done here is solid, careful, built to last. Whatever happened before, it does not define you now. He closed his eyes. I wish I could believe that. Then let me believe it for you. Fix my well, Fletcher. Prove to yourself that you still can. When he opened his eyes, they were bright with something that might have been hope or might have been fear. What if I fail? Then we will figure it out together. He exhaled shakily, then nodded. All right, I will do it, but it will take time. A week, maybe more. I have time and money. I will need to buy materials. She thought of her savings, the jar on the mantel. I have that too. Then I will start tomorrow. That night, a storm rolled through, lightning splitting the sky and thunder rattling the windows. Anara lay in bed and listened to the rain hammer against the roof Fletcher had repaired, solid and sure above her, and thought about trust and fear, and the way his hands had trembled when he agreed to fix the well. He arrived at dawn with a wagon full of stone and sacks of mortar. For the next week, he worked from sunup to sundown, lowering himself into the well on a rope, chipping away crumbling mortar, fitting new stones into place. It was hot, dirty, dangerous work. Anara helped where she could, hauling water for the mortar, steadying the rope, handing down tools. They talked while he worked, their voices echoing strangely in the well's depths. Tell me about your husband, he said one afternoon, his words drifting up from 20 feet below. His name was Torvak. He was kind, optimistic. He thought we could make a life here, away from the orc clans, away from the fighting. He was wrong, but he tried. She paused. I think he would have liked you. Yeah, he respected people who worked with their hands, who built things. She leaned over the rim, peering down. How is it going down there? Good. The north side is almost done. I will start on the east tomorrow. You are being careful, always. There was a smile in his voice. You sound worried. I am. If you fall, I am going to have to fish you out, and you look heavy. He laughed, and the sound echoed up the well like music. On the 5th day, she found the 13th thing that needed fixing. It was a loose hinge on the barn door, and when Fletcher climbed out of the well for his midday break, she mentioned it almost apologetically. I know you are busy with the well, she said, but if you have time, I will look at it. He washed his face at the pump, scrubbing dirt from his skin. You are determined to hit 14, are not you? 14 broken things. You said in July you would probably find 14 things for me to fix by August. We are almost there. She felt her face heat. Did I say that? You did. After the gate latch, he grinned at her. I have been keeping count. That is embarrassing. That is charming. He dried his face on a rag, then walked over to the barn. The hinge was indeed loose, the screws worn and stripped. He examined it, then glanced back at her. "This is a real problem. I know. I am just saying not all of them have been. Some of them were real. Some." He pulled a new hinge from his bag. "Which ones were not?" She bit her lip. "The shutter, the table leg, maybe the shelf, the crack in your step, debatable." He laughed again, shaking his head as he worked the old hinge free. "You are something else, Anara Jorvik. Is that a bad thing?" "Not even a little." On the 7th day he finished the well. He climbed out in the late afternoon, filthy and exhausted, and together they lowered the bucket to test his work. The water came up clear and cold. He tasted it, nodded, then hauled up bucket after bucket, inspecting each one. "It is solid," he said finally. "Should last you 20 years, maybe more." Relief washed through her, so intense it made her dizzy. "Thank you. You paid me to do a job, no thanks necessary, still." She set the bucket down, turned to face him. "You did it. You trusted yourself and you did it." He looked at the well, then at his hands, flexing his fingers slowly. "I did. How does it feel? Strange, good, terrifying?" He met her eyes. "Like maybe I am not broken after all. You were never broken, just hurt." He stepped closer, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her pointed ear. His fingers lingered, warm against her skin. "You have a lot of faith in me. You have earned it. Have I?" His thumb brushed her cheekbone and her breath caught. "Because I still feel like I am one mistake away from ruining everything." "You are not going to ruin anything." "How do you know?" "Because I know you. You are careful, thoughtful. You do not take shortcuts. And even if you did make a mistake, it would not change how I feel about you." His eyes searched hers. "How do you feel about me?" Her heart pounded so hard she thought he must hear it. "Like I have been looking for excuses to keep you here because I did not know how to just ask you to stay." "You could have just asked." "Could I? You are human, Fletcher. I am an orc. People do not, we do not. I do not care about people. I care about you." His hand slid to cup her jaw, and he leaned in until their foreheads almost touched. "I have cared about you since the first time you brought me water on your roof. I have been coming back here every time you called, not because I needed the work, but because I needed to see you. And if you tell me right now that you feel even a fraction of the same, I will stay for as long as you will have me. I feel the same." The words came out shaky, breathless. "More than the same. I was going to run out of things to break, Fletcher. I was getting desperate." He smiled, soft and wondering. "What was going to be the 14th? I had not decided yet. I was thinking maybe the rain barrel." "That is a terrible idea. You need that." "I know. I told you I was desperate." He kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious. She kissed him back, winding her arms around his neck, and for the first time in 5 years she felt like she was not alone, like she had found something she had not even known she was looking for. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers, breathing hard. "Stay," she whispered. "Not for a job, just stay. What will people say? I do not care, do you? Not even a little." He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she felt him smile against her mouth. "But I should probably wash up first. I am disgusting." "You are rude," she laughed, pulling back to look at him. He was filthy, sweat-streaked, covered in mortar dust and grime. He was also the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "Go wash," she said. "Then come inside. I will make dinner." "Trying to domesticate me already." "Is it working?" "Absolutely." He washed at the pump while she went inside and tried to figure out what to cook that would not betray how nervous she was. She settled on stew, something simple and hearty, and by the time he knocked on the door it was simmering over the fire and the kitchen smelled like onions and herbs. He had changed into a clean shirt, his hair still damp. She let him in, and he looked around the small house with an expression of quiet appreciation. "It is nice," he said. "Cozy. It is small. Small is not bad." He moved to the fire, peering into the pot. "This smells amazing. It is just stew." Just stew, he repeated, shaking his head. You have a habit of underselling things, you know that? Do I? You do. This place, your work, yourself. You act like it is all barely adequate when it is actually extraordinary. She ladled stew into bowls, trying to ignore the warmth spreading through her chest. You are biased. Maybe. Does not make it less true. They ate at the small table by the window, and it felt surreal, having him here in her space, sharing a meal like it was the most natural thing in the world. He told her about the village, the people he had met, the odd jobs he had picked up. She told him about the farm, her plans for the autumn planting, the way the goats had a pecking order that seemed to shift every week. It was easy. Comfortable. Right? When the meal was done, he helped her wash the dishes, standing close enough that their shoulders brushed. The contact sent little sparks through her, and she found herself leaning into him, drawn like a moth to flame. I should probably go, he said, but he made no move to leave. You could stay. He looked at her, and the heat in his eyes made her shiver. Anara, I am not asking for anything you are not ready to give, but it is late and the walk back to the village is long, and I have a perfectly good spare room if you want it. A spare room. Yes, just the spare room, she felt her face heat. For now, unless you want something else. He set the dish towel aside and turned to face her fully, his hands coming up to rest on her hips. I want everything else, but I also want to do this right, not rush it. You deserve better than that. What if I do not want to wait? Then we will not wait long. He kissed her forehead, her nose, the corner of her mouth. But at least let me court you properly. Take you to dinner in the village. Let people see that I am serious about this. You want to be seen with me. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours. If that is what you want too. She thought about the village, the stairs, the whispers. Then she thought about Fletcher's hand in hers, his steady presence at her side, and realized she did not care what anyone else thought. That is what I want, she said. He smiled, brilliant and relieved, and pulled her into a hug. She rested her head on his shoulder and felt the tension drain out of her. The spare room is upstairs, she said. First door on the left. Thank you. He kissed her one more time, slow and sweet, then headed upstairs. She stood in the kitchen, listening to the creak of floorboards above, and felt something settle deep in her chest. Hope, maybe, or happiness, or both. The next morning she woke to the smell of bacon frying. She dressed quickly and went downstairs to find Fletcher at her stove, cooking breakfast with the ease of someone who knew his way around a kitchen. You cook, she said. I have lived alone for 3 years. It was either learn or starve. He flipped the bacon. I made coffee too. Hope that is all right. It is perfect. They ate together as the sun rose, painting the kitchen gold. It felt domestic, intimate, like a glimpse of a future she had not dared to imagine. I need to go to the village today, he said. Pick up some supplies, check in at the inn. But I will be back this evening if that is all right. Of course. And tomorrow, if you are free, maybe we could go into town together. I want to take you to the tavern for dinner. She hesitated. The tavern was the social heart of the village, always crowded, always gossiping. Showing up there with Fletcher would be a statement. You are sure? She asked. Absolutely, unless you are not. I am. She squared her shoulders. Let them talk, he grinned. That is my girl. He left after breakfast, and Anara spent the day working around the farm, her mind spinning with plans and possibilities. That evening he returned as promised, carrying a sack of flour and a small bunch of wildflowers that he presented to her with an awkward flourish. I saw them on the road, he said. Thought you might like them. She took them, her throat tight with emotion. No one had given her flowers in years. They are beautiful. So are you. She put them in a jar on the table and they ate dinner together again, talking late into the night. He told her about his childhood, his apprenticeship, the dreams he had once had of building great houses and bridges. She told him about growing up in the orc clans, the rigid hierarchies, the constant pressure to conform. "I never fit," she said. "I wanted more than just fighting and raiding. I wanted a home, something stable." Torvak understood that. He wanted it too, and now you have it. "I do, but it is lonely sometimes." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Not anymore." The next evening they went to the village together. Anara wore her best dress, and Fletcher walked beside her with his head high and his hand on the small of her back. When they entered the tavern, conversation stuttered and died. Every eye in the room turned to them. Anara felt her skin prickle with anxiety, but Fletcher just smiled and led her to a table by the window. He pulled out her chair, waited for her to sit, then took the seat across from her. "Everyone is staring," she murmured. "Let them." He caught the server's eye and ordered dinner for both of them. His voice calm and clear. Slowly, the conversations resumed. A few people kept staring, but most went back to their drinks and meals. The server brought them ale and stew, and Fletcher raised his mug in a toast. "To new beginnings," he said. "To new beginnings." She clinked her mug against his and drank and felt the knot in her chest loosen. They were halfway through dinner when a man approached their table. He was older, broad-shouldered, with a face weathered by sun and wind. He looked at Fletcher, then at Anara, then back to Fletcher. "You are Poole," he said. "I am." "I heard you have been doing work out at the Jorvik place." "I have." The man's gaze flicked to Anara again, and she saw the calculation in his eyes. "Good work." "The best," Fletcher said evenly. "Why do you ask?" "I have a barn that needs a new roof. Was going to hire someone from the next town over, but if you are as good as people say, maybe I will give you a shot." Fletcher leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "I am good, and I am available. But you should know that Anara and I are together. If that is a problem for you, hire someone else." The man blinked, clearly not expecting such directness. He looked at Anara, and she met his gaze without flinching. "No problem," he said finally. "Just want my barn fixed. Then I will come by tomorrow and give you an estimate." The man nodded and walked away. Anara exhaled slowly. "That was bold," she said. "No point in hiding it. People are going to find out anyway." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Besides, I meant what I said. I am not ashamed of you. I am proud to be with you." Her eyes stung. "Thank you." They finished their meal in peace, and by the time they left the tavern, Anara felt lighter than she had in months. Fletcher walked her home, and at her door he kissed her good night with a tenderness that made her knees weak. "I will see you tomorrow," he said. "You better." He grinned and walked away, and she went inside and leaned against the door and let herself smile like a fool. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Fletcher took the job on the barn and several others besides, but he spent his evenings at Anara's farm. They cooked together, talked together, worked together in the garden and with the animals. He fixed a few more small things around the homestead, and she teased him that he was creating job security for himself. "Can you blame me?" he said. "I like it here. Just here, with you, both." She kissed him, and he pulled her close, and for the first time in a long time she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. August wore on, the heat softening into the first hints of autumn. The air turned cooler in the mornings, and the leaves on the distant trees began to yellow. Anara started preparing for the harvest, and Fletcher helped, bringing his steady hands and quiet competence to every task. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set, he said, "I have been thinking about winter, about where I am going to be when the snow comes." Her heart skipped. "Where do you want to be? Here, if you will have me." She turned to look at him, searching his face. "You want to stay?" "I do. I know it is fast and maybe it is crazy, but I have never felt like this before. like I have found where I belong." He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "I do not want to leave, Anara. I want to wake up here every morning and go to sleep here every night. I want to build a life with you." She felt tears prick her eyes. "Are you sure? People will talk, they will judge, it might hurt your business." "Let them talk, let them judge, I do not care." He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I love you. I have loved you since you stood in your yard and watched me fix your roof like I was the most fascinating thing you had ever seen. I love your strength, your stubbornness, your kindness. I love the way you care for your animals and your land. I love the way you look at me like I am enough. And if you feel even a fraction of the same, then nothing else matters." "I love you too," she whispered. "I have loved you since you looked at me like I was just another person who needed help. Since you listened to me and saw me and stayed even when it would have been easier to leave. I want you to stay, Fletcher. I want you to be here with me. Always." He kissed her then, deep and fierce, and she clung to him and felt the last of her walls come down. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "So that is a yes. That is a yes." He laughed, the sound bright and joyful, and swept her up into a hug. She wrapped her arms around his neck and let him spin her, and when he set her down, they were both grinning like idiots. "I should move my things from the inn," he said. "You should. Tomorrow, tonight." He raised an eyebrow. "Eager? You have no idea." He kissed her again, then headed off into the twilight. Anara watched him go, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. He returned an hour later with a pack slung over his shoulder and a grin on his face. She helped him carry his things upstairs, not to the spare room but to hers, and when he set his pack down and turned to her, the look in his eyes stole her breath. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I have never been more sure of anything." He crossed the room in 2 strides and kissed her, and she melted into him, into the warmth and solidity of his body, into the promise of a future she had stopped believing she could have. They made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other's bodies with gentle hands and whispered words. Afterwards they lay tangled together in the darkness, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her skin. "I did not think this was possible," she said quietly. "What? This? Happiness? I thought I would spend the rest of my life alone." "You are not alone anymore." He kissed her temple. "You are stuck with me now. Good." They drifted to sleep wrapped in each other, and when Anara woke the next morning to find him beside her, she felt a peace she had not known she was missing. The harvest came, and they worked side by side, bringing in the last of the crops before the first frost. Fletcher proved to be a quick study, learning the rhythms of farm life with the same careful attention he brought to his craft. The neighbors began to accept his presence, and a few even began to nod to Anara when they saw her in the village. It was not perfect. There were still whispers, still sidelong glances, but there were also smiles, greetings, moments of tentative acceptance. And with Fletcher at her side, Anara found she could bear the rest. On the first day of September, she looked around the farm and realized she could not find a single thing that needed fixing. The roof was sound. The fences were solid. The well was strong. Every hinge, latch, and board was exactly as it should be. She mentioned this to Fletcher over breakfast, and he grinned. "What happened to the 14th broken thing?" he asked. "I never found it. Everything is working." "So you are saying I am out of a job, seems like." He leaned back in his chair, studying her with mock seriousness. "That is a problem. How am I going to justify staying here if I do not have work to do? I am sure we can think of something." "Yeah." He reached across the table, took her hand. "Any ideas?" She pretended to think. "You could help with the animals, chop firewood for winter, keep me company on cold nights." "That last one sounds promising." "I thought it might." He stood, circled the table, and pulled her to her feet. "Or," he said, his arms sliding around her waist, I could just admit that I am staying because I love you and I want to build a life with you, broken things or not. That works too. He kissed her and she kissed him back, and for a long moment the world narrowed to just the two of them, standing in the kitchen of a little farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. When they broke apart, she said, "You know, I just thought of something." "What?" "The rain barrel. The side is cracked. I should have mentioned it weeks ago." He laughed, shaking his head. "You are unbelievable." "Is that a yes?" "I will look at it after breakfast." "You are the best." He kissed her nose. "I know." But when he went to examine the rain barrel later that morning, he found it perfectly intact. No cracks, no damage, nothing that needed fixing. He came back inside, eyebrows raised. "Liar." "What?" "The barrel is fine." She tried to look innocent. "Are you sure? Maybe you missed it, Anara." She gave up and laughed. "All right, fine. There is nothing wrong with it." "Then why did you say there was?" "Because I wanted to see if you would check." "You are terrible. You love me anyway." "I do." He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. "Even though you are a terrible liar and even worse at inventing broken things." "I did pretty well for 13 of them." "You did, but we are done now. No more fake repairs." "What if something actually breaks? Then I will fix it. But you do not need to make things up to keep me here, Anara." "I am not going anywhere." She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Promise." "Promise." The first frost came in late September, silvering the grass and turning the air sharp. Anara and Fletcher woke to it together, and he built up the fire while she made coffee. They ate breakfast wrapped in blankets, watching the sun burn the frost away. "Winter is coming," she said. "It is. Are you ready?" "As long as I am with you, I am ready for anything." She smiled and leaned into him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Outside, the world was turning gold and brown, the fields lying fallow, the animals settling into their winter routines. Inside, the fire crackled and the coffee steamed, and Fletcher was warm beside her. It was everything she had ever wanted. That afternoon they walked the property together, checking fences and shutters and gates. Everything was secure, solid, ready for the cold months ahead. When they reached the well, Fletcher paused, running his hand along the stones. "This is good work," he said quietly. "It is. I was so afraid I would fail, that I would let you down. But you did not." "No." He looked at her, and the shadows that had lived in his eyes for so long were finally gone. "I did not, thanks to you. You did it yourself." "Maybe. But you believed in me when I could not believe in myself. That matters." She took his hand, squeezing gently. "You would have done the same for me." "I would. I will." He turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "Anara, I know we have not been together long. But I also know that I have never felt like this before. You have given me a home, a purpose, a reason to trust myself again, and I want to give you the same. I want to build a life with you, a family if you want one. I want to grow old on this farm and watch the seasons turn and know that every single day I get to wake up beside you." Her breath caught. "Fletcher, marry me." The words came out raw, earnest. "I do not have a ring and I did not plan this, but I do not want to wait. Marry me, Anara. Let me be your husband. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling, grinning so hard her face hurt. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." He swept her into his arms, kissing her with a joy that made her heart soar. When he set her down, they were both laughing, giddy with happiness. "I will get you a ring," he promised. "A proper one." "I do not need a ring. You are getting one anyway." They walked back to the house hand in hand, and that evening Fletcher went to the village and spoke to the magistrate. The bans were posted, and 2 weeks later, on a crisp October day with the leaves blazing red and gold, they were married. It was a small ceremony, Just the two of them and the magistrate and a handful of neighbors who had grown fond of the odd couple on the edge of town. Anara wore a simple blue dress, and Fletcher wore his best shirt, and when the magistrate pronounced them husband and wife, they kissed to scattered applause. Afterwards, they held a small gathering at the farm. Someone brought ale, someone else brought bread, and they all sat around the fire pit in the yard and ate and drank and told stories. It was not grand, but it was warm and genuine, and Anara felt surrounded by something she had not had in a long time: community, acceptance, home. As the sun set and the guests began to drift away, Fletcher pulled her aside. "Happy?" he asked. "Happier than I have ever been." "Good, because this is just the beginning." They spent their wedding night in the house that was now fully theirs, and the next morning they woke to a world dusted with the year's first snow. Anara stood at the window, watching the flakes drift down, and felt Fletcher's arms slide around her from behind. "Beautiful," he murmured. "It is." "I was talking about you." She turned in his arms, swatting his chest. "Sap, you're Sap, my husband." The word felt new, precious. He kissed her, soft and sweet, and she leaned into him and thought about all the things that had led her here. The storm that damaged her roof. The decision to ask for help. The slow accumulation of excuses and half-broken things. The way he had looked at her like she mattered. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For fixing my roof. For staying. For loving me. Thank you for finding 14 things that needed fixing." "Even if half of them were made up," she laughed. "About that." "What? I never actually found a 14th thing. I stopped at 13. He pulled back, mock-offended. "You did not hit your own goal." "I did not need to. I figured out a better way to keep you around." "Oh yeah, what is that?" "I asked you to stay. Turns out that worked just fine." He grinned, shaking his head. "You know what? I think I am going to invent a 14th thing." "What?" He took her hands, looked into her eyes. "My heart. It was broken and you fixed it, so that is 14. 13 things around the farm and one thing that actually mattered." Her throat went tight. "Fletcher, it is true. You fixed me, Anara. You gave me a reason to trust myself again. You made me whole." She pulled him down into a kiss, pouring everything she felt into it. "When they broke apart," she whispered, "then we fixed each other. Because I was broken too, and you made me believe I could be happy again. We are a good team. The best." They stood there in the quiet house, the snow falling softly outside, and Anara thought about the future stretching out before them. Winters by the fire, springs planting the fields, summers watching the crops grow, autumns bringing in the harvest. And through it all, Fletcher beside her, steady and sure in hers. It was not the life she had planned. It was better. The winter settled in, cold and quiet. Fletcher took on a few projects in the village, but most days he stayed close to home, chopping wood and tending the animals and keeping Anara company. They spent long evenings by the fire, talking and reading and simply being together. In the spring, they planted a larger garden, and Fletcher built a new chicken coop to replace the old one. In the summer, they harvested more than Anara had ever managed alone, and sold the surplus at the village market. By the following autumn, the farm was thriving, and so were they. 2 years after they married, Anara realized she was pregnant. She told Fletcher one evening over dinner, and the look of pure joy on his face made her cry. "We are going to have a baby," he said, his voice cracking. "We are." He came around the table and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was made of glass. "I am going to be a father. You are going to be a wonderful father." He kissed her, his hands gentle on her face. "I love you so much. I love you too." Their daughter was born in the spring, a squalling bundle with green skin and her father's gray eyes. They named her Petra, and she was perfect. Fletcher proved to be exactly the father Anara knew he would be, patient and attentive, and completely besotted. He built a cradle with his own hands, carved toys from scraps of wood, and spent hours walking the floor with Petra when she would not sleep. Anara watched him with their daughter and felt her heart swell with a love so fierce it was almost painful. This was her family, her home. The life she had built from broken things and hope and a man who had shown up in July to fix her roof. When Petra was 6 months old, Fletcher came in from the barn one evening and found Anara at the kitchen table smiling. "What?" he asked. "I was just thinking. About how lucky I am." "How lucky we are." He crossed to her, kissed the top of her head. "I am the lucky one. We can both be lucky. Deal." He sat down beside her, taking her hand. "I never thought I would have this. A family. A home. I thought I had ruined my chance at happiness." "You did not ruin anything. You just had not found the right place yet. The right place is wherever you are." She squeezed his hand, blinking back tears. "You are going to make me cry. Sorry. Do not be. They are happy tears." Petra began to fuss in her cradle and Fletcher stood to get her. He picked her up, cradling her against his chest, and the sight of them together made Anara's heart ache in the best way. "I think she wants her mother," he said, bringing Petra to Anara. She took their daughter, settled her to nurse, and Fletcher sat beside them, his arm around Anara's shoulders. They sat like that in the fading light, a family complete and whole, and Anara thought about all the broken things that had brought them here. 13 broken things around the farm. 1 broken man. 1 lonely woman, and now, somehow, everything was whole. Years passed, measured in seasons and growth. Petra grew into a bright, curious child with her mother's strength and her father's careful hands. The farm prospered. Fletcher's reputation as a craftsman grew, and he took on apprentices, teaching them the skills he had honed over a lifetime. Anara expanded the farm, adding more animals, more fields. She became a fixture at the village market, known for the quality of her produce and the warmth of her smile. The whispers faded, replaced by respect and friendship. They were happy. On their 10th anniversary, they stood together in the yard where they had first met, looking at the house that had become a home. The roof Fletcher had fixed still held strong. The well he had reinforced still gave clear, cold water. Every repair he had made, every small kindness had lasted. "Do you ever regret it?" Anara asked. "Regret what?" "Staying, giving up your wandering, tying yourself to one place." He looked at her, his gray eyes soft. "Never, not once. This is where I belong." "Even with all the broken things I made you fix," he laughed. "Especially because of that. You gave me a reason to stay. You saw something in me I could not see in myself, and you loved me enough to lie about a rain barrel. It could have been cracked. It was not. It could have been." He pulled her close, kissing her temple. "I would fix 1,000 rain barrels for you. 1,000 roofs, whatever it took to keep you in my life. You do not have to fix anything. You just have to stay. Then that is what I will do." They stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, and Anara thought about the journey that had brought them here. The storm, the roof, the slow, sweet unfurling of love, the way he had looked at her, really looked, and seen not a monster but a woman, a partner, a friend, the way she had invented excuses to keep him close, too afraid to simply ask for what she wanted, the way he had stayed anyway. Petra called from the house, and they turned to go inside. Fletcher took Anara's hand, and she laced her fingers through his, and together they walked toward the light spilling from the open door. Behind them, the farm lay quiet and content under the gathering dark. The roof was sound. The fences were strong. The well ran deep and clear. Everything was exactly as it should be, built to last by the hands of a man who had learned to trust himself again, and the love of a woman who had given him a reason to try. And if, Somewhere in the barn there was a rain barrel with a crack that had never existed. Well, that was a secret they would keep, a private joke, a reminder of the summer when everything had changed. 14 broken things, Anara thought as they stepped inside and closed the door against the night. 13 around the farm and one that mattered most. But that last one was not broken anymore. It was whole. It was healed. It was home, and it always would be.